Hello there and welcome once again to The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. We're here every week meeting interesting people and dealing with topical issues. And man, this is a big show for us.
This is a big show for us, not for anybody else, but it is for us. Our 600th show, believe it or not. We started April 1, 2001, I guess it was, and been going every week since then. And this is show number 600.
Unbelievable. In fact, we got a governor's commendation here in recognition of your 600th show. I wish the host staff and everyone who make the show possible the best for a wonderful celebration. Governor Mary Fallin. We appreciate the governor's attention, and she's been a guest on our show, both in her previous capacities and of course, currently as governor. But it's appropriate because we have two former governors today to celebrate our 600th show.
Yes, former Governor Nigh and former Governor Walters will be here to celebrate. But I want to divert just a minute and thank the folks at Cox, because if they hadn't several years ago taken us in off the streets as the waifs, the television waifs we were, and nourished us and kept us on the air and kept doing fine things for us technically and professionally, we sure wouldn't have had the 600th show. And so Cox, thanks to you and all your folks.
Yes, and for the friendship of the individuals involved.
Indeed.
It's been wonderful. All right, two governors today coming up on The Verdict. We'll be right back. Show number 600.
Well, prices at the pump are hitting new highs this week. In other news,
gasoline is expected to top $4 a gallon this week.
expect drivers seeing sticker shock at the pump.
OPEC has raised the price of oil again, and Wall Street worries.
Well, a full tank of gas is going to set drivers back.
Straight ahead, the latest news on
Meanwhile, gasoline is expected.
If you need big accounting firm expertise but aren't happy with the value or level of partner engagement from your current national firm, contact Hogan Taylor. Hogan Taylor provides national-level public accounting expertise with high-touch, local partner service in all areas of tax, audit, business valuation, and litigation support. Contact us at hogantaylor.com/The Verdict. Hogan Taylor, big enough to know, small enough to care.
Welcome back to the set of The Verdict. Mick Cornett with Kent Myers. And Kent's going to introduce today's special guest.
Really thrilled today to celebrate this special occasion for The Verdict with two of our favorite folks. We're now getting together on the same show. To my left is the Honorable George Nye, former governor of the state of Oklahoma, was the youngest lieutenant governor elected in 1958 in Oklahoma and served 3 more terms as lieutenant governor. He has served 4 full and partial terms as governor of the state of Oklahoma. He's delivered 10 State of the State addresses. After he finished his active work in politics, he then got into the education area and served as president of University of Central Oklahoma. He is consistently around the state doing good things for a lot of nice people, and he's doing a good thing for us today and joining us. Sure glad to have you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
To our right is Governor David Walters. Governor Walters grew up in Canute, Oklahoma, and he served in the education and private business area before he was elected the governor. He was elected in 1990. He has, since leaving office as governor of the state of Oklahoma, he's been involved in vast international business transactions, has gone more than he's here, but we're sure glad we caught him while he was here and he could join us. Thank you, sir, for joining us. Glad to have you.
Delighted to be here. Thank you.
Governor Walters, let's jump in with you. If people just tuning in and say, I recognize that guy, what have you been doing? Talk about the private business that you've been running for several years.
Well, I have a company called, not surprisingly, Walters Power International, and we have been active in a number of international companies We run a trading operation where we buy and sell power plants and power generation equipment, electrical power. But we've developed power plants in faraway places like Pakistan. We're still active in Pakistan. We're working on a large LNG regasification project there to be the first to bring LNG into that country. We're very active in England. We've created a company there called UK Power Reserve, and we're basically the standby power that deals with the intermittency of renewables. So when the wind quits blowing, which it does frequently there, we'll kick on. And so that's been an interesting business, trying to keep the lights on in Buckingham Palace. And then we've got some activity in California, very little activity in Oklahoma because of power rates and limited renewables. But we're hopeful that over time we'll have more activity in Oklahoma.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
We're pleased you've maintained your residence in Oklahoma, and glad to have you as part of a continuing part of our community. But how much are you gone? Are you gone most of the time?
Well, I'm doing better. I've told the governor I've been averaging more than 20 trips a year, and more than half of those international. This year, Rhonda and I decided I need to quit traveling quite as much, and the communication capacity, whether it's the video conferences and of course telephone conferences, but I've even got folks in Pakistan now that'll Skype. We have Skype-based video meetings, and so it really has come along to where you can comfortably sit in your office and conduct a number of business activities. I chaired a board meeting that was being held in Canary Wharf, the equivalent of Wall Street in London, from my office about a month ago. And my daughter helps me, and it's a great staff here, small staff, and then we've got our decentralized companies elsewhere. But Oklahoma's a great place, and Oklahoma City's a great place to do business.
See, the difference is he and his wife decided he traveled too much, he needs to stay home. My wife and I just celebrated our 49th wedding anniversary, and she says we stay home too much, let's go travel.
Yeah, we need to have a role reversal, half and half.
Governor Knight, talk about not being governor anymore. You were in public service so long. Governors get treated in a certain manner, and then when those days are over, I guess there's something you have to assume.
Well, everybody here has heard it 100 times, but my opening line for remarks for so many years after I left the governor's office was that I knew I was no longer governor when I got in the back seat of the car and it didn't go anywhere. but it is different. But I know Governor Walters, Governor Henry, Governor Keating can all relate to this. It's different, but you really need it to be different because your life as governor in a public office like that is life as a president or life as a governor, with all the requirements that you have to have when you travel, the security, the timelines that you have to meet. You kind of like to have a little freedom and not be the governor. Several times when I was governor, the head of security would get mad at me because I would intentionally try to go do something with just my wife and I. We'd like to do this.
Can you do that?
No. They came in one day, the head of security came in one day, head of the Department of Public Safety came in one day to the governor's office. I'd gone to a movie the night before and didn't tell the security, which I should have told them. But I mean, to go to a movie and 2 rows behind you, there's 2 armed guards sitting there, they're trying to be one of the guys. but so we just wanted to go out, and with our kids didn't like security and that sort of stuff, but it's required by law. But he came in and told me, he said, "Do you like your security detail?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "You're about to cost them their job." And I said, well, "We sometimes like a little freedom." And he said, "I've told your security, the next time any of them are on duty and you get out of the mansion grounds without them with you, they're fired. So if you want to fire your security," and so I became obligated to them. But so there is a life that you enjoy. And it's fun not being governor, but I got to tell you truthfully up front, everybody who knows me knows I loved being governor.
Mm-hmm. And David, it's still on your resume. I mean, whenever you're introduced, people have to go, Governor of Oklahoma. That's a pretty important position.
Well, I remember when I was elected, somebody said, "Well, your first name has changed," and people call you governor forevermore, and that's true, and it's a nice honor, and particularly in somebody like George's case, where a really beloved public servant, people recognize and talk about his administration wherever he goes, and so we all appreciate that. We appreciate a little recognition, but we do savor our privacy now, and it translates a little bit into business. I had I had an Indian prime minister one time that just could not understand why I was no longer governor, because there, when you get into politics, you stay into politics until they arrest you or something. And so in explaining that to him, I said, look, I used to have power, now I make power. And so he finally understood that. So.
Well, let me tell you, that's a great story. My story I tell now is that I went on the first honor flights, veterans of World War II, who are flown by people who contribute, and they fly free of charge to Washington to see the World War II monument. And they called me and asked me, did I want to go on the first veterans flight, the honor flights? And I said, yes, provided you don't call me governor, you don't introduce me, you don't reserve a seat for me, you don't call on me for remarks. I'm just one of the guys. I was in the Navy toward the end of World War II, and I said, I am a veteran, and yes, I want to go, but I'm just George.
Yeah.
Well, we went out and got on the airplane with all these veterans on a chartered flight, and you could tell by the twinkle in their eyes as you do sometimes, oh, I know him, I know him, but no one could figure out my name. And we're standing in front of the World War II monument in Washington, and the first guy recognized me. And he came up to me and he just patted me on the back and he had that smile on his face. And he said, your son was such a good governor. I said, thank you, I will tell him. But time marches on.
Yeah. Former Governor Nye, former Governor Walters, our guest today on The Verdict. We'll be right back with one more segment. Talk to them about how the state of Oklahoma has changed since they run office. We'll be right back.
The thing that has made the most sense for me is realizing that I am still an educator, and that is what I do at the Chickasaw Nation. I'm Dr. Amanda Cobb-Greetham. I'm a historian, and I'm Chickasaw. The Chickasaw Cultural Center is amazing. It is a very, very special place devoted to the sharing and to the celebration of Chickasaw history and culture. State-of-the-art technology, exhibits that are not like anything I've ever seen. The Spirit Forest is incredible, and you feel as if you have actually just walked into a forest with huge trees all around you. It's timeless, and yet it's sort of also representative of our time depth, to really just sort of reach through time and touch the past. By the end of the exhibits, you really have a sense of Chickasaw cultural and political resurgence, and the extent to which we are a healthy, dynamic, and vital tribe today. Chickasaws have always been an inclusive people. This is something for the whole community and for the state of Oklahoma.
Hear that? It's the sound of an industry, 83,000 strong, creating jobs for nearly 350,000. A $52 billion a year being pumped into our economy. It's the sound of Oklahoma's oil and natural gas industry, our heart for the state, and our people. And it beats on and on and on.
When you have something important to communicate, it becomes clear that there's a lot of competition for your audience's attention. So how can your message stand out and actually resonate with your audience? Legal Graphics has the answers. The team at Legal Graphics will work with you to plan, design, and even test your presentation to ensure your message will be heard and remembered. Call Legal Graphics today to schedule an appointment. The readiness is all.
We are back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett, Kent Myers with former Governor George Nye and David Walters. David, how has the state of Oklahoma changed since you were in office? What reflections do you have?
Well, in terms of state government, I think the governor currently has a larger supermajority, so there's that element, although both George and I had large majorities of Democrats. And just like now, when you have these large majorities, one party or the other, then they break into factions, so they wind up fighting back and forth anyway. So in many respects, it probably doesn't change a lot. I think the current administration and the last legislature too has been trying to consolidate more power in the governor's office. I think, frankly, believing there will never ever be another Democrat, but that's okay, because the governor's office has typically been considered weaker by comparison to other states, and so The governor ought to have more power to make things happen, and then they ought to be held accountable for whether things happen or don't. And I think that's an appropriate thing. So that has changed in a state that has, continued to become a lot more metropolitan, a lot more sophisticated, and a lot more attractive in many respects.
We talk a lot about the urbanization that's going on all around the world. People are moving to larger cities. Oklahoma City, Tulsa's populations are increasing. Rural Oklahoma's population is not increasing. Are you concerned about rural Oklahoma going forward? Because you came from a small town.
I did come from there, and we were concerned at the time. We had a great rural initiative. I thought we introduced. I think I was the first governor to really take advantage of the onslaught of email, and so I would tell people, if you want an answer from me within 24 hours, send me an email. If you want one, send me a fax if you want it in a week, and send me a letter if you want one in a month. Well, of course, everybody tried to figure out how to utilize email. But we introduced a rural healthcare initiative that was a telemedicine-based program. I don't think that got sustained, but it was the right effort, and technology really wasn't there at that time. Now I think it is. And so many things can be achieved. My place of business is in Oklahoma. I do it all over the world just through technology and communications. And the same can be true for rural Oklahoma.
Yeah. Governor?
Well, I think that first of all, I think it's tough in elected office today or politics today. I really get concerned, although we had divisions, Democrat, Republicans, divisions within the parties, rural, urban, east and west, Tulsa, Oklahoma City. There are divisions even if you're the controlling party, as Governor Walters pointed out. But having served in the legislature 4 terms, lieutenant governor 4 terms, and governor 4 terms, quote unquote, 2 very short ones, I get concerned that there's not as much effort to get together as there used to be. It's either my way or the highway so many times. And I keep saying I wish we could take the word compromise and kind of throw it away for a while and use the word consensus. Of that, where when we had an issue, and there were several different versions of it, whether we could come together and everybody contribute to the solution. But now it's either yes or no, black or white, left or right. It's just so down the line. I was very fortunate when I was a Democratic governor. Some of my strongest support were Republican legislators. Tim Leonard, head of the Senate Republicans, was one of my best supporters. We worked together to bring things out, and through consensus we accomplished much more than if we just did head on, just button heads, just not refusing to get together. And then you have to realize that those people were elected just like you were, and so they have constituents that they are supposed to represent. The classic example historically was my first term as lieutenant governor in 1958. Howard Edmondson was elected governor, turned around Oklahoma politics. The old guard, he ran against the old guard Democrats. A Democrat ran against old guard Democrats. He got elected in a sweeping majority, carried 76 of the 77 counties, but the old guard legislators, who also were running for re-election, they got elected. So here the people had spoken. Edmondson, who ran against the old guard, and then the old guard, who said they would stop Edmondson from doing anything. And so for 4 years under his administration, especially the last 2, it was just terrible. Yeah. And so I just think we need more consensus. We need more effort to come together. And Governor Walters mentioned, and you asked about the strength of a governor. If you study government in American politics, Oklahoma has the weakest governor in the nation. Not because we elect the weakest people, but because they have the weakest authority.
Just a very populist constitution.
Yeah, it was the longest one written in American history at the time because we want to guarantee all these individual rights, so it's difficult to change the Constitution. Plus, the thing was we have created over 300 agency boards and commissions. And although the governor appoints almost all of them, once they're appointed, you cannot remove them. So they can go against the governor that appointed them. Yeah. So when you criticize a governor because the agency is doing something, you're saying, well, I don't. So the governor has very little authority over most of the agencies. Right.
Looking back on your terms, ask each of you the same question. Governor Nye, looking back on the time you served as governor, pick out a single initiative, if you can, that brings a smile to your face or you're most proud of.
Well, I generally summarize that when I'm asked questions, I make a commencement or speech at a school and they ask questions, tell us about it. I would say that a subject that I do is special programs for people with special needs. My wife Donna and I worked much in trying to get programs for people who had a specific need that otherwise couldn't be addressed. The developmentally disabled, we created the group home programs for those, the library for the blind, making the mansion handicapped accessible. Can you imagine the governor's mansion wasn't even accessible to the handicapped? Blind Easter egg hunt for blind children on the mansion grounds. We just worked particularly those who, now I did the road building, I did the education, I did the VOTEC and higher ed and all that. We did all that, the core stuff. But trying to create programs that would address specific needs of people who couldn't help it, who had those needs, and trying to make exceptions for them.
Create change.
Yeah.
Governor Walters?
Well, first I just want to underscore what Don and I and George did, because they contributed so much to the mentally disabled and that portion of our population that just was ignored in many respects. We've just honored them for the John F. Kennedy Community Service Award, which the Knights of Columbus give every year, and it's terrific to go back and look at that history, particularly starting the beeping Easter egg, which we continued and all the other governors have continued, but it's really a wonderful accomplishment. I think what pops to my mind and during our term is we had, working with Mayor Norick and others, have worked hard to try to get the United Airlines maintenance facility to Oklahoma. And we thought we put on the table the very best plan at the time, and we still lost that plan. And we had trouble responding as quickly as we needed to other competitive states, and just as a matter of jobs. And so I had this great Secretary of Commerce, Greg Main, who's now president of St. Gregory's. Greg went out, I said, let's create the best job incentive program in the country, and he did, and created Quality Jobs, which it continues to this day, and has generated, we think, thousands and thousands of jobs in Oklahoma. It was described by U.S. News and World Report as the most aggressive job incentive program in the country.
It's still one of the best.
And so House Bill 1017 had already been passed, but we sustained the funding of that for common schools for education, and we passed a big bond issue for higher education. Those things, you just can't invest enough in infrastructure, as the mayor knows, in Oklahoma City. That kind of long-term investment, whether it's in people or in infrastructure, is really important.
Got about a minute left.
You mentioned how the population shifts. I think one of the things that the governor needs to realize, and the people need to realize, that when you're running for governor, you're governor of 77 counties, regardless of whether it's urban or rural or east or west. And they need a highway in Boise City just like they need a crosstown expressway in Oklahoma City. They need a VOTEC school in their area. They need a veteran center in their areas, that geographically. And so mainly what I was proud of is I wanted to be governor of all 77 counties and not just single upon where my buddies were. And I think that public service is very honorable, and I encourage everybody to get involved in politics. And if you don't like who's there, run yourself.
All right. About 30 seconds left. Final word from you?
Well, George was governor for all 77 counties. That's because he carried all 77 counties. I only carried 75, and so I tried to ignore a couple of counties.
Brad Henry only carried 76.
Yeah, that's right. So 77, 75, 76. It's a delight to be here on this record-breaking show, and so thank you. Thank you so much. Congratulations to both of you, and what a wonderful celebration this is for you.
Appreciate both of you, and happy anniversary.
Thank you.
All right, Kent and I'll have a final word when we get back.
The good life comes naturally to Tulsa, where nature's beauty is matched with an eye for aesthetics. A legacy of neighborhoods graced with lawns and landscaping and handsome homes. A place that seems to have patented an ideal lifestyle. Bank First is loyal to the quality of life Tulsa assures its citizens, to the priority placed on education, culture, and growth. Loyal to builders who transform raw land into residential charm. developers who see opportunity and add vitality to Tulsa's economy. Bank First serves both enterprise and private lives that need a loyal partner. It's how we help nurture this city's very good life. Bank First. Loyal to Oklahoma. Loyal to you.
All children deserve a life of hope and love, but sometimes they experience a life of pain, neglect, and abuse.
When that happens, each child deserves all the quality assistance and representation that can be offered in our legal system. For more information, call 23-CHILD.
Oklahoma Lawyers for Children, helping to bring hope and love back to the lives of abused children.
The Journal-Record is pleased to be a sponsor of The Verdict. The Journal-Record, since 1903, the best source of Oklahoma business news and legal information.
And for almost 30 years, Oklahoma political, government, and business leaders have turned to the McCarville Report for accurate, reliable, inside information. Visit the McCarville Report online. We are back on The Verdict. Mick Cornett and Kent Myers wrapping up our 600th show, and especially want to thank former governors Walters and Nigh for coming on to make this a special occasion.
Yeah, they both had to kind of jump through some hoops today to make this show, and we really do appreciate their effort in joining us. It added greatly to this day for us, and once again, thanks to all our friends at Cox. You just made it wonderful.
I was going to say that as well. Cox Cable's been a wonderful partner for us, and
Yes.
allowing the show to air in both Oklahoma City and Tulsa. And we hear from viewers in both communities, and we'd love to continue to hear from you. You can send us a note to our website, theverdict.tv, theverdict.tv, and tell us about a guest you'd like to see or a topic you'd like to understand, or maybe just want to know how the heck we've stayed on for 600 shows.
That'd take a long response.
We cut that pilot, if I remember, like in September of 2000.
That's correct.
And we got on in the spring. So there was a few months in there where we were shopping the show around, trying to get some help.
Yeah, we had a lot of closed doors.
Well, it has been fun once we got going. 600 shows. Thank you so much for making it possible. Without viewers, obviously, there's no television. For Kent Myers, I'm Mick Cornett. We will see you next week on The Verdict, and who knows, maybe 600 shows from now we'll still be here and bringing back the two former governors to have a wonderful chat. See you next time.
The preceding program was produced exclusively for the Cox Channel.